Okay, we are about 2 minutes in here, so let's get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Inbal. I'm the Director of Programs at Work on Climate. We have a really special hour planned for you all. We have Eugene, who is our Executive Director, as well as Felix, who is our Community Program Manager, and we're all here to talk about the direction that Work on Climate is taking. You probably heard from us that things are shifting and changing and evolving, and you probably have a lot of questions. So, this is the first of many opportunities that we'll have to start talking about what is happening, why are we evolving, why are we shifting? And yeah, we'd love to hear from all of you how everything is landing. We're going to start with Eugene, if you can just move us through the agenda, please. We're going to start with just, again, an overview of where Work on Climate is headed. Eugene will be talking for some time. We're going to have a couple of interactive polls and exercises throughout this conversation, just so that you have a really clear understanding from us about what is happening. And then we'll spend the majority of our time in Q&A. So really, we're here to listen to you guys and hear about your not it doesn't only have to be questions. If you have any reflections about how our evolution is landing for you, if you are if you have feelings that are really difficult, we want to hear all of it. If you feel excited, we want to hear it. If you're like, I don't get it, we want to hear it. This is really a space to just air out all those feelings and for us to start working towards a shared understanding of what this community is that we're building together, because we don't want to be forcing it to go in a direction that doesn't make sense and that the community doesn't want it to go in. So we want to really co-create this place for all of us. And yeah, we'll have a couple more town hall meetings in the future so that we continue to have these conversations and we can always keep talking on Slack. So that is the best place to keep talking. We are going to be using Slido for this hour to collect questions from all of you. And if you haven't used Slido before, it's a really cool tool where you get to pop your question is and you can upvote other people's questions. So if you have the same question as someone else, you can just upvote that question. And then that way we can address the major questions that most people have. If you have a question that wasn't addressed, feel free to, after this meeting here, post it in our community feedback channel, and we will continue to have the conversation there. Okay, so with that, I am going to hand this over to Eugene.
All right, thanks, Inbal. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm very excited to talk with you all about the new direction of work on climate. I will begin with something that you very much already know. You probably know Work on Climate as the world's largest climate work community that has helped a tremendous number of people change their careers into climate. You're all here because you want to make a difference for climate through your work. And that's what we have been helping people with. So over 34 people say that not only they found, let's say, jobs or other ways of engaging in climate, but it was because of the community. And for example, one of our biggest friends, John Azov, says it plainly that Work on Climate has created one of the most impactful climate communities in the world. And people have found jobs and started companies that then raise tens of millions of dollars and have made change through their current jobs and so on and so on. So it's been very inspiring. But I also want to acknowledge that many of you might not be feeling very inspired right now amidst everything that's going on in the world. We're living in really messed up and, to put it plainly, traumatizing times. And so many of the things that we're holding dear are really falling apart. We have passed climate tipping points and we're nowhere near reversing course on that. Democracy is breaking down. Inequality is rising to a level that normally leads to serious crisis. And there's just too many crises going on at the same time. And part of the reason why dealing with this is so difficult is that we're collectively kind of playing whack-a-mole with each symptom of the problem. We're fighting Exxon, we're fighting Trump, we're fighting addictive social media, we're fighting AI bias, and so on. And playing whack-a-mole is exhausting, right? It feels like we're just swimming against the tide. And to persist in this fight, we need to have a vision to work towards. And I really like this quote by Buckminster Fuller, who was a famous architect and inventor, philosopher, and systems thinker. And he said that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, you build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So this is an important part of where work on climate is headed. You will hear soon about what is the new model that we're talking about. But by model, we mean the economic system as a whole. So we don't just mean, for example, how we manufacture steel, though it relates to that as well, or how we produce energy. So I would like to now offer you a little activity that I think it's really important to create space for us to hold multiple contradictory beliefs at the same time. I think it does not make sense, like, do you think that it's market solutions, or do you think that it's policy, or do you think that nothing can be done? Everyone I know, including myself, holds many of these at the same time and just accepts that I believe several things that cannot be true at the same time, but all of them resonate in some sense. And I think that if we're going to collectively be working on the full complexity of the problem, it's important for us to accept that this is what is going on in our minds and our hearts. And only then we can begin untangling this complexity. So I invite you to, I've put together, some common narratives that many people hold, and some people hold different narratives. So I invite you to post in the chat, just like with a comma, maybe 1, 2, 4, maybe 3, 5, 6. Which of these resonate with you at the same time, or post something else that resonates with you. And let's just spend a couple minutes on that and look at what other people are holding, what beliefs other people are holding. And that will maybe normalize for you as well, that you can believe in several contradictory things at the same time. Yeah, I love seeing this, all kinds of combinations. There's a combination of hope and accepting the loss and grief, and a combination of also hope that maybe some things are low-hanging fruit and can be done. Maybe some things can be reformed. Maybe some things require a radical change. Yeah, let's give this another minute or two, and yeah, really read other people's answers as well.
It's also interesting to note which out of all of the different viewpoints that we hold, which one kind of ends up taking more of the wheel. Because, I hold, for example, number 5, that it's too late to kind of solve climate, yet I'm we just need to do it at the same time. Like that one feels like it's more in the wheel, taking my drive.
Yeah, I love that you're saying this, Inbal. I think like one of the accepted facts in psychology is that we hold multiple desires and beliefs at the same time, and our will shows itself through which of the desires we act on. So there is a desire to give up, but there's also a desire to do something, and we may be acting on that one. Um, well, thank you, everyone. Let's uh, let's. Oh, Carrie, thank you for such a thoughtful answer. Having been at this for 30 years, I've learned a lot of what not to do. And now leading with inner work, relational work, bioreasoning, and systemic transformation through a regenerative lens. Yeah, Carrie, I heard about your work in this domain, and as you will see, a regenerative lens is indeed what the lens that we're taking to this. So uh, this is the vision that's guiding work on climate. It's the vision of a regenerative economy, a regenerative economic system. And this is a concept that some people are familiar with, some are not. So let me try to explain it however best I can. And this is my particular way of explaining it. So I like to begin by making an analogy with my body. So my body, it is 170 pounds of single cells that are exchanging resources with each other. They're exchanging signals with each other and exchanging signals and resources with the outer world. So it's really it's an economy in a pretty meaningful sense. And I'm not saying this is a joke. It really is an economy. And all of this exchange is going so well and so healthily that it adds up to a whole Eugene, right? A whole person whose activity in my body, the only purpose of the activity in my body is to keep my body healthy and alive. Because if that stops being the case, then my body dies and all the cells die as well. So it basically humans have been evolving for a long time until this started being the case, until activity started being aligned with the health of the whole system. And the funny thing is that this happens automatically. It's not, for example, that my kidney is very mission driven or very altruistic. It simply does what the kidney does. And it's not like my body has a very strong health department. Like my body is the health department. That's how bodies work. So imagine if, on the contrary, let's say that my kidney decided to become the biggest and baddest kidney in the world. You know, it's an incredible organ. It filters my blood so well. Wouldn't it be awesome if this incredibly cool and useful organ was 10 times bigger and filtered 10 times more blood? Unfortunately, that's called kidney cancer. And then healthy growth of the kidney would soon kill all the systems that kidney needs to function, and the kidney would die. And I leave analogies with our economy as an exercise for the reader. So what I mean by this is that a regenerative economy, it's an economy that shares this property with the body. It doesn't mean that it runs exactly like the body, but it shares this property. That activity that happens in it, this exchange of resources and signals, serves the health of the economy and serves the health of the systems that it depends on. There can be no more important purpose to any economic activity than strengthening the health of the system, just like in the body. So what might this mean in practice? It might mean, for example, manufacturing materials in a way that also draws down carbon from the atmosphere. It may mean growing food in ways that also strengthen the fertility of the soil and strengthen the resistance of the food system to climate shocks, and also strengthen the trust between food producers and food consumers, and preventing accumulation of power and exploitation of workers. In a non-climate context, it may mean, for example, running a business in a way that also strengthens the interpersonal trust in the community where it operates. In tech, for example, it might mean running social media companies in a way that also improves the social health of the people who are using these, and so on. And some people may hold, among other beliefs, they may hold the belief that come on, you're losing me here, Eugene. That's stupid. This can never work. Humans are naturally selfish. This just can't happen at all. If you think so, I have good news for you. And I want to remind you that in our body as well, that kidney that I talked about, it's not mission driven. That's just how it works. So sooner or later, our economy will become regenerative, because any iterations that are not regenerative will simply collapse, and we will keep trying until we figure it out. Obviously, I would like us to figure it out a little sooner. But moreover, this has actually been the case before. We've done this before. I'm a really big fan of Dr. Lila June Johnston, and I encourage you to look up her talk called Architects of Abundance. In that talk, she gives many examples of how different human societies have run regenerative economies that strengthen the systems that they depend on. So they weren't simply like hunter-gatherers that lived at small scale and simply lacked the capacity to destroy the systems that they depend on. But and they didn't simply like live in harmony with nature. Nothing wrong with that, but that really isn't the point. The point is that the way the relationship between them and their environment was that they actually built new and massive Los Angeles-sized food systems and aquaculture systems and other kinds of systems that actually increased biodiversity, increased natural thriving where they are, increased nature's resilience to shocks, and their systems lasted thousands of years. So their systems lasted thousands of years, and I don't think that anyone can say with a straight face that our systems today will have that kind of claim to fame. So we probably have something to learn from that. The funny thing is that people were able to do that even without all the advances of modern age. And some people at this point say, and therefore we should give up technology and capitalism. They are harmful. We should just go back to nature. But I think about this very differently. I think that if we were able to build something this cool, even with very limited means, then just imagine what kind of kick-ass regenerative economy we could build today if we used all the modern infrastructure and genetic engineering and the healthy parts of finance and the healthy parts of AI and healthy ways to use it and so on and so on. Wouldn't it be amazing? Just imagine what it would be like for all the incredible power of today's economy to run in a way where the harder it goes, the healthier things become. That's a very inspiring vision for me. So I want to take another, allow you to have space to kind of consider your attitudes towards this vision. And likewise, I invite you to read this and post things that are true for you at the same time about this vision in particular. Interesting. So much strong alignment so far. I think indeed the biggest tension is between pursuing a long-term vision and acknowledging that there are short-term damages and we can't just abandon people who will suffer in the short term.
I also saw someone share one, so thank you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, Matt, thank you for sharing 1 to 5. Very reasonable perspective as well. And we need people like you to pursue the other parts, because I think the greatest danger here is having the arrogance to think that we know what's right. In fact, one of the biggest principles of regenerative economy is to not have top-down control and to have self-regulation and to allow for multiple approaches to thrive and the good ones to evolve. Maybe another minute here. Okay, let's keep moving. So how can we work towards such a bold vision? Well, since the beginning of work on climate for a long time, maybe the first 3.5 or 4 years, we were coming from the assumption that there is work to be done. There is, money flowing into climate. There's people who want to do the work. And if we just put the two and two together, then progress towards our vision will happen. And that's why we've been helping you find climate jobs. But a couple of things happened. One is that honestly, I, as well as all of us on the team, we formed the belief that the economic system today it simply lacks some fundamental capabilities that are necessary to maintain a stable climate. It simply lacks the capacity to maintain the health of anything it depends on. So that was a bit of a wake-up call. But also the climate landscape has shifted, and a lot of these jobs that were supported by federal legislation in the US are now gone. And a lot of these jobs were supported by funding from VCs who apparently were not as authentic in their conviction as we would have liked and have now pivoted to AI and military. And oftentimes the existing job openings, they're just not in the same roles and industries where climate motivated professionals are, right? Like maybe you're a software PM, but they're a hardware company. Maybe you're an architect, but they need an electrochemist. Maybe you're a lawyer, but they already have a lawyer. So realistically, there will be a match of a job opening for maybe 20 people, percent of people, if not 10%. But what about the others, right? What about the other people? Does that mean that you're just stuck refreshing your job feed until something comes along? And well, we wouldn't be running work on climate if we were going to accept this. So the issue really is that jobs alone will never put enough of your energy to work. There's simply not enough those kind of ready-made opportunities on a silver platter to go around. We need to create our own opportunities. And that is prompting our shift from helping people find jobs to helping people become leaders. And leaders are people who do not wait for permission. They are people who lead rather than just do what someone else wants to them to help with. So I want to throw a provocation at you. Um, I think the majority of professionals in my experience wanting to do something about climate are thinking about themselves as job candidates, as a talent pool. But I think that we have to stop thinking like that. We have to start thinking of ourselves as power, and there are people have all kinds of associations with this word, and I think we probably see this word in different meanings. But I am using it in this meaning that it was the day of Martin Luther King Jr. yesterday, and he said a wonderful thing about power. That power, properly understood, is the ability to achieve purpose. Um, I have a background in physics and other technical things, so I like the analogy that it is actually not really different from power in physics. It's simply the ability to make things move is what it is. For example, like a small car engine is about 200 kilowatts of power, while a large container ship engine may be 100 megawatts of power, and a large container ship can move much bigger things. So think about it this way. It's your ability to move things. And you have that ability because you have spent your entire careers building influence, building authority among your peers and in your industries and in your networks, getting to know important people who, some of whom listen to you, at least some of them, and learning how change works in your industry and how to like navigate the system. So these are the components of your power that you can use to move things. And let me give a couple of examples of what such movement looks like. Here is one example I always like to give. Our friend Kyler Farr. He was a finance professional, an accountant, and he did neither of the things that you might expect he did. So neither did he simply compete for finance job openings at climate startups, nor did he, green whatever finance job he had at the time. Instead, he found a new job at a building inspection company called Inspectify, and while joining them, he convinced them that it would be a good idea to start a new line of business focused on finding energy efficiency opportunities. And so now this company that works with $20 billion worth of real estate, it's using a good chunk of this power to decarbonize the built environment. So Kyler moved this machine in this direction. That's how he used his power. Another example is our board member Zoe. And Zoe was a UX content strategist at Google at the time. So nothing to do with climate, not on the sustainability team. And she used her power to move others, to move the power of others at Google. She created Google's internal community of employees focusing on climate. And what she did, so the purpose of that community is to help Google build climate solutions. So they're not simply organizing walkouts or begging executives to not do AI. I imagine like they might be at least wanting to do some of that too, but the main thing they do is they help Google figure out how to spin up climate positive lines of business and product features. And they've played a big role in the fact that, for example, Google X, now over half of their products are actually focused on climate. And I don't necessarily mean to say that Google is, all hail Google, the climate champion. But thanks to Zoe's work, a lot more of its power is used in a climate positive way than would have been otherwise. And products are being incubated. So there are many, many, many other ways to use your power, and I think this is the really important part. So when I show people a list like this, they're like, "Oh wow, this like you really should distribute this list of examples. I've never thought of it this way." So I encourage you to look closely at just some of these examples. So for example, if you work in a certain industry, maybe in the vehicle industry, a way you can use your power is you can get involved with an industry policy effort and help them scout stronger experts from your network. Or at your company, you can lobby your execs to include an ambassador from the green team into supplier diligence so that going forward, you select more sustainable suppliers. Or you can, if you're a consultant, you can facilitate connections between your clients, connecting clients that are more advanced in sustainability and those that want to be more advanced. This is also a way you can use your power. And this way, you move their power. If you maybe like have been involved with an industry conference, you can go and start a climate track. I did this for an AI conference. One of the first things I did coming out of my job at Google was I sent 2 emails to the chair of a conference where I previously gave a talk a few years ago and was like, look at this. There's a lot going on in climate. Do you want to start a climate track? And he said, sure, do you want to chair it? So this is a lot easier than you think. Um, and so on and so on. So there are many, many more examples that you can imagine here, and we will be helping you figure out the space of possibilities for you to act in this way and how to do that. And I want to take a final temperature check. I promise this is the last one, and then we will soon transition to Q&A. But I want to take a temp check about your relationship with power. So likewise, take a look at these options, and I also invite you to post in the chat and read what others are saying. Ooh, 5 and 6. Yeah, that's a combination that I think many people see. 4 and 5. Yeah, 4 and 5. I think it's also common. 4. Part of our job will be to help you deal with 4. Amy says this doesn't really apply to people looking for work. Well, Amy, I would challenge that. It does apply to people looking for work because at least half of the examples in the previous slide do not depend on you having a job. It might be that while you're looking for work, you're too busy to do any of that, but that doesn't make it impossible in principle. And in fact, I didn't, have a job when I was starting that climate track. I was in free float exploration at the time. 1, 4, 5. 1. Yeah, I think 1 is something that we have to grapple with. So how do we accept that at the same time we really do need the people who could do the most about this are people who currently hold the most power and they're not doing it. So maybe that option of doing the most about it is not available to us today, but other options are, and maybe one day they can adapt to change. Yes, Mark, 100%. We also want to create the conditions for power to emerge. Yeah, for others, Mark runs Climate Designers, which is a community that helps designers use their power for climate. All right, thank you all. Let's keep moving. So what does this mean for what Work on Climate will look like going forward? Going forward, Work on Climate is reorganizing into a system of local chapters where their purpose is to transform whole sectors of the economy in that community. So we're going to be concentrating the power of our community members to transform certain sectors. Whether it's buildings in New York, whether it's banking in Mumbai, whether it's media in Tokyo, whether it's something else, each chapter is going to help people in that chapter become climate leaders individually, and then it will help them begin acting in coordination. And which is at the point where we help people act in coordination, that's where really systemic change rather than organization level change becomes possible. This is called the Impact Networks. I invite you to check out a book called Impact Networks. It's one of our Bibles on this team. The first chapter that we have already started, we just kicked it off last Thursday, is focused on food systems in Bay Area. And in that chapter, we will be figuring out kind of models for how to run a chapter most effectively. So how do we help people see their power and see the space of options and act on them? And then as we learn that, that is going to inform our organizer support program. So only 1 or 2 of all of Work on Climate's chapters will be staff-led. Almost all chapters will be led by the community. So we have a program that's called Organizer Support, where we're going to support people who, let's say, want to raise their hand, like, hey, I want to run a chapter focused on transforming the building sector in New York. And then we're going to be like, wonderful, thank you so much. We're going to help you by, let's say, promoting your activities, coaching you on how to be a good chapter leader, opening our network so that you have venues to work with and experts to invite, and so on and so on. Integrating you into the overall machinery, connected machinery of Work on Climate, and so on. We actually already received over 80 applications for this program. And maybe at some point, Felix, you could post a link to the chat if you think we want more applications. And when it comes to our online community, our online community will continue providing basic support. And really, its role will be to enabling the wider machine. So over time, more and more of work on climate is going to be happening in chapters. So a big role of the online community is to make that happen. So to get more people to become interested in being chapter leaders and to help people discover the right chapters for them. So some things are staying the same. The community is still for you. It's still for people who want to make a difference for climate. And many of the familiar ways to engage will still be there. We will still have mentorship programs, events. The Slack channel is still there. We will still have resources, starter packs, and a newsletter. But some things are changing. For example, the overall type of support is changing from broad scope support with job seeking to more like leadership development. So helping everyone become a leader, see what it looks like for them, and help everyone understand how change happens in the sectors that they're in or where they can show influence so that they can navigate it. The kinds of success stories that we're featuring, for example, will change from look at me, I found a job, to look at me, I successfully championed changed, and here's how I overcame the obstacles to that. Or educational events will change perhaps from look at us, we're a clean energy startup, we're hiring, to here's how public utilities work and how you can get involved in changing how they work. These are obviously just examples. Or mentorship programs will shift from how do I find the right opportunities for my skills to more like what does change in my industry or my company or my context look like and how can I drive it. And the final shift is from almost exclusively online to increasingly in-person activities. So these are the shifts. And yeah, let's move to talking with you all about that. I will actually keep this slide on rather than having a slide that says questions and comments because I think it's clear enough that that's what's invited.
Thank you, Eugene. Yeah, and thank you for everyone for engaging. So we're gonna pop on over to the Slido questions. And the first one I see is related to a regenerative economy. And
So
Eugene, if
does
it's
it?
okay, I can take this one.
Sure. Does anyone want to, maybe Felix or Inbal, do you want to present the Slido?
Um,
Probably Inbal because she hosts it.
Mm,
Well, I can just show the list if that's helpful.
actually, I can do that too,
yeah.
actually. Okay.
So the first question we have here is, will a regenerative economy get rid of emphasis on GDP and take away the focus from number of products sold? So my answer to that is, and it will, maybe the rest of the team can share their answers later, but the answer to me is that a regenerative economy changes what we optimize for, not by pretending that GDP or sales don't exist, but by essentially no longer treating them as the primary signal of success. And so, yeah, it doesn't treat them as the goal. In today's economy, metrics like GDP growth and like units sold are treated as proxies for success, but the problem is that they measure activity, they don't measure health. And a regenerative economy essentially asks a different question. It asks whether this economic activity is strengthening or weakening the systems that it depends on. So in a regenerative economy, GDP and revenue and those types of metrics, they still exist, but they are no longer the North Star. They're treated as a means and not the ends. And um, maybe other signals would be elevated, um, economic growth that coincides with soil loss or burnout or community breakdowns would no longer count as success if GDP growth it coincides with those things. Um, so we might look at growth metrics that show that we're restoring ecosystems and improving livelihood and building general community resilience. Um, yeah, I'm curious if that answered it or if Eugene or Felix, you want to add anything to that question.
Um, I do want to add a little bit. So yeah, certainly if the goal of the economy is health, that means that the success of the economy is measured by health metrics. Um, GDP, it's a metric, but it's not really a health metric. So I imagine that if in a few decades we actually have a meaningful regenerative economy, GDP will certainly be not the only metric it uses. That doesn't mean that the economy, will not grow in some meaningful sense, but I think that growth looks very different in the regenerative economy than today. It's you can, compare the idea of me growing the size of my body versus me growing in terms of personal growth and being able to accomplish bigger and better things. So obviously, different metrics describe these processes.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be a big, big journey for us to figure out the answer to your question, Connie, what metrics will determine success and whether how much emphasis we want to place on metrics in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, I want to move to another question, unless Felix, sorry, I skipped over you. Did you want to add anything there?
No, you're good. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. We have another question here about supporting job seekers. How will work on climate support job seekers? Go somewhere else? Can't we steer job seekers towards the most climate friendly of their options? So, the answer to that question is that work on climate is still going to be a place for people who are interested in climate jobs. A lot of our Slack, if you've been part of the Slack, has been built around supporting job seekers. We have the job channel, we have the starter packs. Some of those things are not going away, so you can still browse jobs if that's what you're coming mostly to work on climate for. You can still reach out to people that you've seen that are talking about specific sectors or roles or are recruiting. You can reach out to them and talk to them. So in those ways, work on climate is still a home for people who are interested in climate jobs. However, from a programmatic perspective, we are going to be expanding our scope to really help people understand how they can find their power, use their power to be building a regenerative economy, whether that's in their workplace, in a new job, or through any of the other examples that Eugene talked us through earlier. Um, I I think the answer to your question, can't we steer job seekers towards the most climate friendly of their options, is going to happen by default by participating in the types of programs that we're going to be building. Um, it is going to be advantageous for anyone, whether they are job seeking or not, to have a deeper understanding of their power and how to wield it in this economy. It's going to be advantageous for anyone to be connecting locally across their sector to people who are really interested in regenerative practices. And those things are going to yeah, we're going to lean into those, and they're going to be supportive to job seekers as well. But you're not going to see the types of events that we've had in the past, like CV support for job seekers or those types of events. Felix, I'm curious if you want to add anything.
No, I say no and then I continue to talk. But I was just going to kind of highlight again what you were saying about learning these skills and leadership being beneficial to folks who are job seeking at the moment, and also recognize that, as Eugene kind of alluded to earlier, that if you're job seeking, you might not have the time to do these things. And a lot of times people who are job seeking have to weigh time in terms of like what's going to support me and my immediate needs and what feels like a sort of nice to have. Um, and just I want to acknowledge that reality as true, and also say that this is not just about building the skills, which definitely will be helpful in positioning you as a unique contributor to wherever you end up, but also building a sort of muscle memory in evaluating the kinds of roles you're looking at, companies you're looking at, through a regenerative lens, and helping you perhaps to be more specific in what you're looking for. and what you can offer if that happens to align with your methodology and approach to job seeking.
I would like to add to that a little bit. Thanks, Felix, by the way. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, overall, first of all, our hypothesis is that people are looking for a climate job because they want to make a difference for climate. And I think that very few people are actually of the mindset that either give me a job or I'm not interested. Like if there's other ways to make a difference, I think many people are open to that as well. But even if you're somebody who is only interested in finding a climate job at a climate startup, working on climate stuff with a climate team, um, there is still so on one hand, I disagree. I wish that you had kept a more open mind, but that's okay. Work on climate is still wants you to provide you one type of support, which is finding a community. And we think that as you participate in this community and build relationships and get inspired by the change that is happening, maybe you will become more open to other things, or maybe not. Maybe that's the only help you'll get from work on climate is the community, and that is already a lot. But I don't want to also create the impression that like nothing is changing for job seekers. We're providing just as much support as we did. That is not true, because we're trying to drive change towards a regenerative economic system, and towards that end, it is not helpful for us to simply help our people win jobs that are going to get filled anyway. So what we are interested in is making things happen that would not have happened, and we think that many of you want that too. And that's why we primarily want to support you in becoming leaders.
Thank you all. Hopefully I feel like that was a good answer there. We covered a lot. Let's see. The next question here is work on climate is not acting alone in pursuing regenerative solutions. What does collaboration outside of the local groups look like? That's an excellent question. My very quick first response to that is work on climate is here to be additive, and we are not in of a competitive mindset. So if someone is out there doing work that is in a particular sector and they have a good thing going, we're going to be funneling support towards them. So we really, really want to start establishing deeper connections, and we have been establishing very deep connections with local organizations who are working in the regenerative movement, and either pulling them into this kind of our quest of figuring out how to mobilize professionals to build a regenerative movement or funneling support towards them. And I think that if you are if you are an organization that has been deep in this work for a long time and we haven't talked to you yet, please reach out to us. We want to talk to you. We want to figure out how to work together. We are really all about exchanging resources, uh, figuring out how to create better uh, what Eugene calls network vehicles, these like ways of collaborating and funneling, funneling funding and people and different types of resources across organizations to ultimately build this regenerative economy. And we can't do it alone. We 100% cannot do it alone. Our vision is that this won't be our work. This will be all of our work together, all of these different organizations. Um, you might see us also collaborating at Work on Climate. We're gonna host different speakers here. We might be supporting other organizations in hosting events outside of Work on Climate. So you're gonna be seeing us involved in a lot of different arms, if that makes sense. I have not been keeping track of the chat, but I see some comments.
I think Eugene and I are keeping on top of it. Nothing
Great.
has been unaddressed thus far. So thank you everyone for your multiple methods of participation.
Yes.
All right, Inbal, do you want to take the new top question?
Yes, let's do that. Okay, where are we? Will all chapters be exclusively place-based, or will there be opportunities for topic-focused chapters for people to work virtually across locations? That is an excellent question. This is for us right now an experiment and a hypothesis. So the place that we're directing our efforts, at least in the next 6 months to a year, is going to be more place-based, sector-based chapters, just to help us kind of stay focused on how to activate people in that type of setting, how to activate professionals in that type of setting. Our hypothesis was that people who are local are going to form stronger connections, are going to be able to collaborate a lot more strongly. And two, people who are in the same sector have the context, the network, the knowledge to also collaborate in a really powerful way. So that's why we decided to focus on place-based, sector-based chapters. However, I will leave it kind of open to say that, again, this is an experiment. So if you're really passionate and want to start something a little bit different at Work on Climate, we're not going to say no, but please just reach out to us and we'll see how we can collaborate. We might not be able to give you as much support or attention, at least in these couple of months, but um, that's where we're headed in the near term. And this is an iterative process. So again, just reiterating what I'm saying, you might see us doing things a little bit differently in 6 months, maybe a little bit different from that in a year.
I would just want to jump in if I might. This reminds me of a comment that somebody in the chat made earlier about how moving to local, regional-based chapters might affect the cohesion of the Work on Climate community as a whole. And I think that's a really good point and ties in with this question well. I'm personally somebody who is, as some say, chronically online. I made a lot of my formative relationships in my early life online and see that there's a lot of unique value in what an online community presents. So I'm actively thinking a lot about how a global online community fits into this local chapter strategy. And some of the things that have surfaced for me are areas where broad connection makes sense. For example, there are going to be things that all organizers need, regardless of where they are. And that might be something that the online groups can, sorry, not groups, but like the online community can surface and potentially work on. And like Inbal said, if you're passionate about starting something, we're definitely not going to say no. And maybe there are sectors where an online community makes more sense, perhaps if it's not bound by local jurisdiction, or is something that is inherently online, that thrives and lives online. Telecommunications, and that is has jurisdiction locally. But there is an opportunity, I think, to think broadly about the things that we do, and the online community is definitely something that has gotten us to where we are, and we want to make sure that folks feel empowered to be involved in whatever way they can.
Thank you for that, Felix. All right, moving on to, I'd love to hear how the first chapter meeting in San Francisco on food systems went. Yeah, um, that is a good question. I will post about it on Slack. If it's okay, I will pass over this question for now, and we will keep you updated on how that went on Slack. Um, I want to maybe prioritize some of these other questions here about regenerative economies. And I really recognize that that's a really important question. So thank you for asking how it went. It did go very well, and we're very pleased. That is a very quick headline. Okay, next question here. In a system where economic factors powerfully influence government of the system, how do we ensure that economic output is not the primary goal of the system? Eugene, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to take this one. And yeah, I mean, there's there's no waffling around this. Today's governments are corrupt. And that is one of the issues that we have to deal with on the path to a regenerative economy. I think at the high level, this question is asking, like, how the hell do we get there? And there are many different philosophies of how we're going to get there. We will post our particular take on how we might get there um, in the next couple of weeks on our blog and our social media. But if I had to really quickly summarize it, it's really about accumulation of grassroots power. So the idea is that as we build healthy regenerative organizations, and as we help them, unite into healthy networks of organizations that are healthy not just by themselves and not just between each other in the network, but also healthy in their relationship to wider whole. We think that if properly structured, these networks will be, these new forms of organizations will be simply more successful than today's organizations, and they will basically outcompete the current systems, and let's say cities that successfully transition to a regenerative economy will be more successful and more powerful economically than cities that don't, simply because today's extractive economy, it is doomed to eat itself from within, right? So it simply cannot last very long, and something healthier will eventually win. But obviously, we want it to win faster, and we are this evolutionary process that is driving the development of these healthy alternatives. So I think the answer to your question is, like, how will we ensure that that is the case? Well, through showing that healthier systems win, and through mobilizing people and as well as politicians and all kinds of stakeholders to be part of the healthy systems because they're better to be part of. But the hardest question is, of course, how do we build these kinds of healthy systems that are not just good in their own right, but can survive and win in a fight to death with incumbents? Because we should hold no illusions that existing powerful players will not be simply competing with what we're building, they will actively try to destroy it. And we need to plan for that. All right.
Thank you,
So,
Eugene.
next one.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question here. There's a reflection. We'll skip that. Love the shift, especially the example of educational events. If anyone wants to do one-on-one real estate development, I'm game. Thank you, Olia. Yeah, let's talk. What plans do you have in the future I think this question was addressed on chat, if that's correct. So I think this question was addressed. The next one here, what led to regenerative economy system, circular economy, planetary health, fair access to insurance requirements, wildlife urban interface, cross sector all over. Beth, I'm curious if you can clarify your question. If you're on here.
Yeah, I'm on. I think it might relate to some of the metrics that you might be coming from, and I know you weren't really touching on those, but it just seems like it culminates so many things. And from a resilience perspective, I can hear a lot of that from it. I've heard a lot through a planetary lens, planetary health lens, but I just didn't know if there were other segments and pieces that you were like reaching into, and Eugene had talked about a couple different books. So I was curious.
Yeah, Beth, I can answer this. Let me know if I'm not answering your question. If I understand correctly, you're asking, like, why did we pick this particular vision? as opposed to, let's say, other visions of economies, and also given how cross-sector it is, perhaps what role can we hope to play in something this broad? Well, I think that the transition to a regenerative economy will happen gradually and in parallel in many, many sectors of the economy. And our role is to mobilize the passion of people who care about climate in particular to build regenerative alternatives that are climate relevant. And so we work on climate, probably at least not for a while, probably won't be, for example, working on building regenerative social media networks, right? That's going to be the job of tech networks that are aligned with regeneration. But we will be perhaps working on regenerative built environment and regenerative food systems and so on. And so that's our role. Basically, as we are all here to manage the climate crisis, we want to manage it in a way that at the same time brings us closer to a regenerative economic system. And why did we pick this particular vision? Well, the story was that first I became familiar with the concept of polycrisis, which is the fact that there are so many interlocked and overlapping crises happening at the same time that there is no hope of addressing them one by one. And that was a bit of an existential moment for me. I realized that you can't really do much about it simply by competing for jobs. It's just not the kind of tool that can lead to that kind of change. And I was wondering even, should I still be running work on climate? Or should I start a new organization focused on the true nature of this problem? But then we collectively came across the vision of a regenerative economy. And I just think that it was a very profound moment for me when I came across it. It was shocking and spiritually meaningful, like just this core idea of an economy that strengthens its own health, the harder it works. And I think other visions such as circular economies or donut economics and so on, I think they go deeper on some aspects of this, but the idea of a regenerative economy is a great umbrella term for what fundamentally has to be true for any economy like this to succeed. So I think components of other visions are very valuable for us as we explore parts of this further, but regenerative economy is the umbrella.
Okay. Thank you, Eugene. And we are at time, unfortunately. The next question is also really interesting, but we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining. We're going to have more of this. This is going to be recorded. This was recorded. It will be posted on our YouTube if you want to reflect back on it. Post more questions and community feedback. Yeah, thank you. And as you're signing off, if you can just go off mute and share whatever feeling you're leaving us with. For me, it's really heartfelt.
Energy and excitement for our community.
Thank you. Feel free to just jump in all together if it's a cacophony of feelings.
Optimistic.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Nice.
I like it.
Let's go indeed.
Someone says feeling super inspired and motivated.
Yeah.
I'm inspired also. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I was a little bit surprised to not see too much confusion or disagreement. I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing, just that I was surprised to not see it. It is a good thing in some sense.
Okay, stopping the recording now.